Martin Allen was 15 years old when he seemed to just vanish. He was last seen on the London Underground with an unidentified man in 1979. His brother's life, their family's lives, haven't properly moved on.
To you, is it the only plausible explanation that it was something to do with Westminster?
Pretty definite. I'm pretty sure. If it's not, I'll be surprised. But I can't think of any other organisation that could tear a family apart for 35 years without anything, nothing at all. No deathbed confessions, no nothing being said. It's like he never existed, Martin, really.
If Martin was alive, he would have got in touch. Definitely. He would have got in touch with us to let us know he was okay, because he wouldn't like to see us sit and worry.
Up until the beginning of this year, I still had lots of hope, but suddenly it's disappeared.
Just want to know what did happen and to have a final closure. I mean, all right, it will never close out of my mind. It'll always be in my mind, but at least we can have a little family gathering just to say cheerio, and that's it.
It was just after 4 p.m. on November 5th of 1979. A man who we will refer to as Joe is walking through the Gloucester train station in London, England on his normal route home. During this time of day, the station can get busy, so he's trying to quickly navigate around people at the station to get where he needs to go. I've never been to London, so I don't know what their public transit system is like, but I have ridden a train in Atlanta as well as New York, so I know that it's not out of the ordinary to see some pretty crazy or weird stuff on the train or while on the platform waiting for your train. At some point, you become numb to it and just ignore things that you typically would not ignore. On this particular day, Joe saw something that caught his eye. It was a young boy who appeared to be between 12 and 15 years old. He was a little under 5 feet tall, had short brown hair and braces. He was standing with a man who was around 6 feet tall and very blonde. This mysterious man was well built, in his 30s, and had his hair slicked back. He had a neatly trimmed mustache, denim jacket, and jeans. He stood out because of his stature and his style. He was very nicely dressed, but in a way that just didn't fully fit in with everyone else. They were on the Piccadilly line westbound platform, waiting for their train to arrive. At first glance, it looked like the pair maybe could have been father and son. However, he just couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The boy looked like he was scared and uncomfortable. He was looking around and shifting his weight as if he was nervous. The train then arrived, and Joe, along with a mysterious pair, boarded the train. Joe couldn't shake the feeling that something was just wrong, but he could not bring himself to intervene. He then watched as the mysterious man then placed his hand on the back of the young boy's neck and uttered the words, "Do not try to run." Joe felt a pit in his stomach, and he got the urge to intervene, but before he could say anything, the pair exited the train at Earl's Court. Joe thought that maybe it was just an altercation between father and son, and he was just reading too much into it. He decided to just let it go and carried on with his day. He came to regret this decision a few weeks later when he began seeing missing flyers for that same boy plastered on the walls of the station. That boy was Martin Allen. Martin was 15 years old at the time of his disappearance. Joe was among many witnesses who came forward to report that they saw Martin at the station that day with that same strange man, but none of them were able to step in and stop him. Martin's disappearance and his family's fight to uncover what happened to him shed light on potential police cover-ups as well as an alleged secret pedophile ring that involved high-ranking members of society. But before we get into that, let's walk through the timeline of events that led up to Martin's disappearance. Martin Allen was born October 19th of 1964 to Tom and Eileen Allen. He had 3 brothers, Jeffrey, Kevin, and Bob. Whenever I hear of a family that has all boys, I imagine pure chaos. I mean, I only had one older brother and was regularly terrorized with loogies, wet willies, and random wrestling moves, so I can just imagine a household of 4 boys. But Martin wasn't like that. Martin was described as a good, quiet, and loving kid. He brought a sense of peace to the household. Outside of the household, he performed well at school and excelled at French and math, but his true love was the arts. He loved expressing himself through photography, the music that he liked to listen to, and could be found regularly spending time alone drawing. Martin and his family came from a very humble beginning. Up until age 12, they lived in a council flat in Hornsey. For those of us who are unfamiliar with what a council flat is, council flats are government housing for families with low income. It wasn't exactly the best area to live in, but Alan's family had to make do with what they had. When Martin was 12, their luck changed when his father was hired as a chauffeur to the Australian High Commissioner. The High Commissioner's role in the UK is to be the UK government's representative in a Commonwealth nation. They are responsible for the direction and the work of the High Commission for things like political work, trade, investment, press, cultural relations, the list goes on. This career change then led them to moving to Kensington to live in a cottage on the commissioner's grounds. This was a major shift for the family. They went from public housing to now having people like Winston Churchill, Margaret Thatcher, and the De Beers family as neighbors. It's kind of like when Will Smith moved from West Philadelphia to Bel Air. It gives that same vibe. During this time, Martin started going to school at the Central Foundation Grammar School on Old Street. He was shy, small for his age, and fearful of things like the dark, being alone, and loud noises. To ease his anxiety, he developed a routine for the mornings when he would go to school as well as the afternoons when he would return home from school. His routine was as follows. In the mornings, Martin would initially travel with his brother Jeff. From their home in Hyde Park Gate, they would get on the Circle Line tube from Gloucester Road to King's Cross. Martin would then change to the Northern Line, then to Old Street, and would arrive at school. In the afternoons, Martin and his friend, Ian Fletcher, would travel the 2 stops together from Old Street to King's Cross on the Northern Line. From there at around 3:50, Martin would board a southbound line tube. At this time, he would normally meet up with his mom. She would usually sit in the same area so that he would know where to find her. Then he would get off at Gloucester Road. The entire journey would typically take about 17 minutes. He'd then turn left out of the station and cross Cromwell Road, then walk up Gloucester Road until he reached Reston Place, which was a 5-minute walk. He would normally reach home at approximately 4:20 p.m. This was his normal routine every single day, except for Mondays. On Mondays, Eileen would have class after work and would not be able to meet up with Martin. This would leave Martin alone on the ride home as well as alone at home. As we mentioned before, Martin did not like being alone, so sometimes he would ride to his brother Bob's house instead. Monday, November 5th was one of those days. Eileen expected to arrive home late, and it was also Guy Fawkes Day. Side note, when I read Guy Fawkes Day, for some reason my brain kept picturing Guy Fieri, and I was like, why does Guy Fieri have a holiday? Anyway, for my fellow Americans, Guy Fawkes Day is an annual commemoration of the failure of the gunpowder plot in 1605. Radical Catholics tried to assassinate King James I and destroy Parliament in an explosion. Guy Fawkes led the plot and failed. So during Guy Fawkes Day, they celebrate his failure by burning his effigy in a bonfire and lighting fireworks. It's kind of like the biggest FU. Can you imagine having your failure turned into a holiday? It's like when you mispronounce something and your friends and family turn it into a lifelong joke, but on a much larger and much more embarrassing scale. Anyway, so this holiday involved 3 things that Martin did not like. He would have to be home alone, in the dark, and there would be loud fireworks. Because of this, he planned to ride to his brother Bob's house after school. He left for school that morning wearing a dark blue blazer, which featured a gold and red quartered shield motif with a scrolled blue and gold motto, a white shirt, blue and yellow striped tie, and gray trousers. He also had a gold neck chain, it's a gold M within a circle charm, a Casio watch, and a bright yellow book bag. Since he was going to his brother Bob's house after school, his mother gave him a little balaclava to give to Bob for Bob's newborn baby. Martin put this in his book bag and also grabbed some change for the train ride. He followed his normal morning commute and attended classes. His friends noted that nothing seemed out of the ordinary about Martin during the school day. In the afternoon, he started his afternoon journey as normal with his friend Ian. He mentioned that he intended to go to his brother Bob's house. They took the Northern Line from Old Street to King's Cross. Since Martin was going to his brother's house, he was supposed to switch over to the northbound line platform at this point, but Martin remembered that he owed Bob's wife $1. Martin didn't like the idea of breaking his promise, so he decided to get on the southbound line to go home first to grab $1. Ian watched Martin walk down the foot tunnel leading to the southbound line platform. A few other classmates also claimed to have seen Martin travel down the escalator to the southbound line. It was 3:50 p.m. This is one of the last confirmed sightings of Martin. At first, it was mentioned that there were no confirmations that he ever made it home to grab that money for Sue, but later down the line, it was noted that one of his brothers did see him briefly arrive home and then leave, so that was more than likely when he came to get that money for Sue, but the stories have been conflicting. Some say he didn't make it home, and then some stories say that he did make it home to grab that dollar and then headed back to the train station. So who knows? But for sure, he was seen at the train station going towards the southbound line at 3:50. But not long after this, a woman claims that she saw a child that looked like Martin being slammed against a wall outside of Gloucester Station. This would imply that he made it out of the station and then re-entered or was forced to re-enter. If you remember his normal afternoon route, he would have gotten off at Gloucester Station to head home. A man then claims to have seen Martin descending a lift at Gloucester Station with a man. So it sounds like Martin was caught or followed outside the train station and forced to re-enter. Maybe this was someone who had been watching Martin and was expecting him to take that northern line since it was a Monday, but was caught off guard when he went south and had to guide him back into the station. After this, the next witness that claimed to have seen Martin was the witness we mentioned earlier, Joe. His identity hasn't actually been revealed. I just named him Joe to make it easier to follow. The next witness claimed to have seen Martin with a man when they got off at Earl's Court, and some claim that they saw the pair board a Richmond-bound line at 4:30 p.m. In total, 10 people had believable sightings of Martin with the strange man. And I know what you're thinking. Why didn't they do anything? They all mentioned that Martin seemed scared and reluctant, but no one stepped in. In some reports, I did read that a person who saw the pair at Earl's Court did confront the mystery man, but the mystery man claimed to be an undercover police officer who was arresting Martin. They just took his word for it and backed off. I tried picturing myself in the same situation, and I just don't know if there's any scenario where I would allow that strange man to walk off with a clearly scared child. It was a holiday, so maybe the fact that it was so hectic made it easier for people to just overlook what was happening, and they didn't realize that the interaction was weird until they thought back on it. But who knows? Anyway, Bob, Martin's brother, wasn't too alarmed when Martin didn't show up. He figured that Martin may have been too scared of the fireworks to visit them and decided to go home. When Martin's mother got home, she assumed that Martin was with Bob and that he decided to stay the night due to the fireworks. The following day, Martin's mother still had not seen Martin. She called Martin's brother at around 7 p.m. to ask if Bob had seen Martin. Bob responded, "No, he never came over last night. I assumed he stayed home." And it was at this moment that alarm bells started ringing. They started calling Martin's friends, each one of them claiming that Martin had never made it to school that day. This was very unlike him. He followed a strict routine and would never run away from home. They then called the police and filed a report. This report was filed a full 24 hours after Martin was last seen. With missing people, the first 24 hours are the most crucial, and that was already lost to the police. Police launched a media campaign calling for information on the disappearance. This led to all of the witnesses coming forward with their accounts. The police also searched Martin's room for any evidence. During their search, they found no evidence, but even more strangely, they found no fingerprints, not even Martin's. Many people have found this to be very odd and has led to some speculation that maybe something was found, but was covered up. Martin's family felt that the police were just not doing enough. Allegedly, Jeffrey, one of Martin's brothers, confronted the police about their lack of effort and was told that there were high-up people involved and that they should stop talking and not take it further because someone will get hurt. The police investigation and cries for help led nowhere. Martin's disappearance remained unsolved. His family settled on the idea that Martin was likely murdered, but did not let go of the desire to find out what happened to him. Let's dive into some of the theories. After Martin's disappearance, there was a serial pedophile that was discovered in the area named Dennis Nilsen. Dennis Nilsen was arrested in February of 1983. He was active from 1978 to 1983. He would lure young men to his home, assault them, strangle them to death, and then dismember them. He typically targeted young men that he would meet in bars or that were homeless. Usually he would offer them a place to sleep for the night and or alcohol after gaining their trust, then would strike when they least expected it. In 2012, police questioned Dennis multiple times but were unable to connect him to Martin's disappearance. Martin also just did not seem to fit into the same type of victims that Dennis targeted. Dennis targeted people who were lost and needing somewhere to fit in. He didn't have to use much force or aggression to get his victims to follow him. This would not have applied to Martin. Martin had a family and a place to stay and didn't drink, so he would not have been able to be lured by any of Dennis's tactics. So unless Dennis just completely changed his MO for this one, he most likely had not come into contact with Martin. Sidney was another pedophile that was discovered to have operated during this time. He had a group of about 12 men who would abduct, assault, torture, and murder young boys from the 60s into the 80s. They would lure boys as young as 6 or 7 to an apartment in Hackney, East London, with promises of candy. Once he got the children to his apartment, he, along with a group of other men, would assault and murder the child, then dismember and dispose of the body. Sidney was ruthless, callous, and has never shown any remorse for his treatment of his victims. He and his group were only found guilty of murdering 3 children, but there are rumors that there are dozens more. Sidney is currently serving 2 life sentences. Police questioned him about the disappearance of Martin, but Sidney denied any involvement. Around the time of Martin's disappearance, there was an alleged ring of high-profile pedophiles. A member of Parliament, Geoffrey Dickens, assembled a dossier of high-profile officials who were allegedly part of a ring of organized child abuse where they would trade violent images and videos that showed sexual acts with children. Dickens accused at least 8 officials of being involved in this pedophile ring, but the government refused to release any names. It was supposed to be handled privately, and the dossier, as well as any other documents relating to the allegations, were said to have been passed on to the police for investigation. Somehow during that process, the documents were lost. Dickens also claims that the same day that the dossier was handed over, his and his father's homes were ransacked. According to Dickens and many others, the documents were destroyed on purpose to prevent any of the information from getting out. According to the government, however, there was an internal investigation that determined that the documents were not destroyed or purposely mishandled. But I don't know. Who do you guys believe? Martin could have been in very close proximity to some of the people involved in this alleged pedophile network, thanks to his father's job as a chauffeur for the High Commissioner of Australia. Is it possible that someone noticed Martin, took interest, and paid this mysterious blonde man to follow and abduct him? Who knows? I'm interested in reading what you guys have to think about this one. Do you think Martin really did just run away? Or do you believe that the truth behind Martin's disappearance is being covered up to hide some deep, dark secrets? Be sure to let me know down below in the comments. And while you're there, also be sure to like and subscribe. Till next time.